Welcome back, friends. If this is your first time, welcome. This is Michigan Crime Time, and I am your host, Jess. This is the second half of the preliminary examination for the murder of Alyson Doulos, and the accused is Charles Gamis. The link for the first half of this hearing is in the description. Please don't forget to like and subscribe to support my channel. Also share my videos and comment. If you would like to further subscribe, the link is in my description to join my membership. There is also the link for my merch shop that is now open. With that being said, I am not an attorney. I am not putting forth any legal conclusions nor giving legal advice. All comments are my opinion, irregardless of any verbiage I may use. All persons are innocent until proven guilty in a court of law, and my video is not the official record of the court. With that being said, let's get back to Judge Simpson's courtroom for the second half of this hearing.
All rise. The 14A District Court for County of Washington, State of Michigan is now in session. Here, the Honorable Judge Simpson.
You may be seated. Let's call the case of the People State of Michigan versus Charles Gamis.
Jessica Blanche, appearing on behalf of people.
Good morning, Your Honor. Christina Costantino, appearing with and on behalf of Mr. Charles Gamis, who's present and who's seated to my right.
All right. Date and time set for preliminary examination. Ready to proceed.
Judge, there's a couple of stipulations I'd like to put on the record.
Yes.
We have 26 exhibits today. 1 through 25 have been stipulated to. There's photos of the scene. That's 1 through 16. 17 through 20 are photos from the autopsy. 21 through 25 are photos of defendant on arrest. 26 the autopsy protocol, but the medical examiner is here today. I'll admit it through him.
You're saying that was 26?
Yes, that one's not been stipulated to.
Got it. Is that a correct statement, Counsel?
That's a correct statement, Judge, yeah.
Well, I guess I can do this now then. Exhibits 1 through 25 are admitted.
Thank you, Your Honor. And I'll publish them as we go along, Judge.
That's fine. All right. Any other stipulations or anything?
I don't believe any other stipulations.
No other stipulations, sorry.
All right. Anything else before we begin?
Judge, we would be moving to sequester any and all witnesses, and we would be asking the court to consider sequestering any and all witnesses that might be or will certainly be witnesses at a trial should one occur in this case.
Okay. First part. I will order witnesses sequestered for this proceeding.
Judge, I have my OIC here. It asks for the exception of him, obviously, and then my first witness is right there.
All right.
So I'll be calling him first.
The OIC may remain,
Thank
of
you.
course, in the courtroom. I will sequester all other witnesses. That is for this proceeding. I always find it curious that attorneys ask me to sequester witnesses for further proceedings such as a trial. I can't prevent witnesses from reading transcripts and the like and seeing things. So I don't know that I could do that even if I wanted to, quite frankly. So for this proceeding, I will order witnesses sequestered. They're not to discuss their testimony with any of the other witnesses until the conclusion of this matter, certainly. All right.
Not trial witnesses, correct? Because I do have a possible trial witness in here, Judge.
Not trial
Okay,
witnesses,
perfect.
just witnesses for today. All right.
Thank you, Judge.
All right. Thank you. All right.
My first witness, Judge.
You may.
Deputy or Sergeant Kratzenberg to the stands.
Raise your right hand. Take a seat, state your first and last name, spell it for the record.
John Kratzenberg, John, Kratzenburg.
All right. You may inquire.
Thank you, Your Honor. And where do you work?
Washington County Sheriff's Office
And how long have you been employed there?
since July of 2007.
Okay, I'm going to direct your attention to March 13th, 2023, where you dispatched.
Originally, I was not. I was requested to go there by another deputy.
Okay, and was that on March 13th?
Correct.
And what was the nature of that dispatch?
For welfare check.
Okay, on who?
On who?
On whom? Was it on an Alyson Doulos?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And what time did you arrive on scene?
I was, I don't know exactly what time I arrived at, to be honest.
Do you know approximate, or do you want me to grab your police report to refresh your recollection?
Please report, because the way it was is Deputy Betts was out there. He was out there for a little while and he requested me to come out and then.
You know about what time of day it was?
Evening hours, I think it was around 10 o'clock.
On the 13th?
Correct.
Okay. So you said Deputy Betts was there. Who else was there on arrival? Was that the only one there?
Deputy Betts was the one that was originally dispatched there, and he's the one who contacted me, and then eventually our whole shift showed up.
Okay. And did you gain access to the apartment, C1?
I did.
How did you gain access?
I requested maintenance come with the key and let us in.
Okay. And what did you observe when you entered the apartment?
There's a female down on the ground in the living room.
Judge, people move to publish People's Exhibit 1.
All right. Yes.
Give you a workout today. I'm sorry.
Did he need a copy of?
Yes, there are absolutely more. I think they should be. I'll show you, but that is it. Correct. Yep.
Or should he have that one?
No, Judge, is for you.
Yes, that's for me.
You saw a female located on the floor. Was that Alyson Doulos?
Eventually we ID'd the person.
Okay. And how was she positioned when you entered into the apartment?
She was laying on the ground in the living room with her head towards the door.
Did you observe any injuries?
There was injuries and appeared to be blood on her person and in the apartment.
Okay, and what'd you do next?
We did a search of the apartment to make sure there's nobody else inside the apartment after checking her status. And then I had all the deputies back out and we secured the apartment. I made our notifications for our protocol.
To the detective bureau?
Right.
Okay. And then what did you do?
From there, it was a lot of scene security.
Do you identify any possible suspects?
Yes.
Who?
The boyfriend at the time.
Of the victim?
Correct.
Okay. And did you request any phone pings?
We did.
Of whose phone?
Boyfriend.
Okay. And did you have any location based off those phone pings?
I believe there was a location. I'm sorry. I just hung up midnight. I'm not toast. Or tired.
It's okay. Hold on, let me grab your report. You didn't bring your report, did we?
I have a copy of it.
Do you have it with you up there?
Yes.
Okay, can I approach the witness?
Yes, you may.
I just want to make sure it's the right. Approach a witness again.
You
Your
may.
Honor. Can I refresh his recollection, or will your report help you refresh your recollection?
Yeah.
Okay.
There you go.
Okay. Where was this phone pinging to?
In the area.
Judge, I apologize. I'm going to object as to lack of foundation at this point in time. I don't
Okay.
know if this witness has the knowledge or expertise to testify as to where a phone pinged, what specific location, how they determined that. I think lack of foundation at this point in time.
I'll ask him how he determined the phone ping or where it came from. Can you follow up as far as you said the boyfriend? Can you determine someone's name, their phone number, how you retrieve that information?
Yes, one of the deputies on scene spoke to the victim's brother.
And you determine a phone number
Was able to get her phone number.
of a boyfriend?
Correct.
Do you know what the boyfriend's name was?
Mr. Is it Gaines? What's with the Z, not S, right? Mr. Is it? Gomez, thank you, sorry. Yes, Mr. Gomez. And then that number is provided to central dispatch, contacted whatever phone company it came back to.
And it came back in Dearborn, you said?
phone came back to Dearborn off the area of Michigan Avenue, Firestone.
Okay, did you, was the victim's vehicle, were you able to locate the victim's vehicle at the scene?
No,
Okay. Did you enter the victim's vehicle into lien as missing?
or I did have dispatch eventually do that.
Okay. Have 1 second, Your Honor.
May.
You said you had a key, had to get a key from the apartment complex to get into the apartment. Was there any indication of forced entry when you first arrived on the scene?
No.
Okay, I have no more questions, Your Honor.
All right, cross-examination.
Thank you, Judge. Good morning. Okay, Sergeant Krantensburg, were you wearing a body worn camera during this investigation?
Yes, yes,
During the entirety, were you wearing one the entirety of the investigation while you were on scene?
yes.
Were there any known issues with the functionality of that body worn camera? Okay, didn't die, the battery didn't stop or anything of that sort, right? Okay. You testified on direct that you obtained a key to the apartment. Who did you obtain that from? Do you have the name of the individual that you obtained it from?
I do not know.
Did you personally speak with maintenance that day?
I think after we gave the key back to him.
Okay, so prior to obtaining the key, who did you speak with from the apartment complex?
Dispatch called the apartment complex to get the key for us.
And who from dispatch? At what point in time was the apartment complex called, if you're aware?
I don't recall the exact time on when it was called. I have to look at the CAD notes.
There are CAD notes, though? Okay. Did you personally obtain the key from the maintenance officer?
At some point in time, I did have possession of it. I don't remember if it was given to me from the other deputy or from maintenance, but I'm the one who keyed into the apartment.
Okay, keyed into the apartment. By that, you mean you're the individual who placed the key into the apartment and opened the door for the first time. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. What impression or what was told to the maintenance department to get them to turn over the key?
Actually, I don't know because dispatch called them.
Okay. When you first arrived at the scene, what kind of investigation were you under the impression this was?
It's a welfare check.
Okay. What does a welfare check mean?
Somebody, a bit individual, and they usually call the police to do a status check on them, make sure that they're okay.
Is there a time period that traditionally your department allows pass before entry is made into a home for a welfare check?
It's all situational,
What does that mean?
depending on the circumstances for that individual welfare check.
What were the circumstances for this particular welfare check that caused you to enter the home?
And we're just gonna get a hold of the victim. She didn't show up, no call, no show to work. Information gathered from the neighbors and deputies on scene was that there's a history of arguments or disorderlies or altercations in the home. Surveillance in the home. And when we were knocking, or when Deputy Bess was knocking and attempting to get contact, we received no answer. And there's no sign of the dogs barking inside the apartment. Also
Okay, so all of those things that you just described, were all of those issues present prior to your putting the key into the door to enter for the first time?
That's the reason why we entered the apartment. Yes.
Okay, and did you speak to neighbors prior to entering the apartment?
Yes, people that deputies did.
Who?
I don't know. You got that's those deputies, the neighbors.
You personally did not, correct?
At some point in time, I had contact with neighbors, but I don't recall getting all the background information with the deputies did.
Okay, but you personally did not have contact with the neighbors prior to entering the home that day, correct?
I don't recall if I did or not at what point. I know I did talk to neighbors. I don't know at what point I did.
Would showing you a copy of your report refresh your recollection? I believe you have a copy of the report in front of you. Is that correct?
Yes.
Any objections? No, I have to use it. At this time, I'd ask that you look at the report, read through it, and look up at me once you've completed reading through it. Okay, so did reading your report refresh your recollection as to whether you spoke to any neighbors prior to entering the home?
I don't recall seeing any neighbors prior to going.
Okay. Did you personally speak to any family members prior to entering the home?
I don't recall if I did or did not.
Would reviewing your report refresh your recollection?
Sure.
Please take a look at your report, read through it, look up at me once you have either completed reading or your recollection is refreshed. Did that refresh your recollection? Did you speak with any family members prior to entering the home the first time?
Not prior, no.
Okay. How many times did you enter the home?
I believe just one time. So we backed out and secured it.
Okay. Is it proper police procedure to obtain a key and enter an individual's home during a welfare check?
It's all situational. What the backstory is to that call for service.
Were you aware of what the individual indicated in the welfare check at the time that you entered the home?
The information that I just provided to you is what the reason why we did the welfare check.
Okay. At the time that you obtained the key and entered the home, how many days did you believe the complainant had been missing or unlocatable?
I don't know the exact amount of days. I know she was a no call for work, so.
Do you know how many days she was a no call, no show for work?
I don't recall.
Do you recall obtaining that information or asking anyone that question?
I don't recall if I did or did not.
You had no search warrant the first time you entered the home, correct?
Correct.
And it was you who first set foot into the home, is that correct? How many other officers first entered the home?
Oh, going through the report, I don't recall how many went in with me or the exact number of deputies that went into the home.
If you reviewed your report, would it help refresh your recollection?
My report doesn't indicate that.
Okay. Typically, is it proper police procedure to include who all enters a crime scene at the beginning in your report?
Everybody who responded would author a report.
How many officers entered the second time into the home, if you're aware? You didn't enter the home the second time, correct?
What do you mean the second time?
After a search warrant was entered, it's my understanding officers entered the home following a search warrant being entered. Were you present and did you enter the home following the search warrant being entered?
You're referring to the detective bureau?
I'm asking you, who entered the home the second time around? Was it you? Were you there?
When the detective bureau eventually showed up, yes. I went to the home the second time.
Okay. And you recall, I asked you, how many times did you enter the apartment? Your testimony, if I believe, was one time. Now your testimony is you entered the apartment 2 times that day, correct? Okay, the first time was when you put the key into the door and entered without a search warrant, right?
Correct.
The second time was after a search warrant when you entered again and did what at the scene?
We would do a walkthrough of the detective bureau and tell them what we found.
How long were you in the home the second time? How many officers were with you when you went into the home the second time?
I don't recall who was all there.
Did you touch any items in the home the second time?
No.
Were you wearing gloves the second time?
I believe that was.
But it's proper, you'd agree, it's proper police procedure to wear gloves when you're entering a homicide scene, right?
If you're gonna tech it, I wasn't teching it.
Okay. But you were aware that second time that it was a potential homicide scene, right? And you still entered without wearing gloves, correct? When you first entered the home, did anyone touch the complainant to determine whether a pulse existed?
I don't believe so.
Did anyone touch the complainant in any other manner that first time?
So,
Did you enter the crime scene any other time, other than the 2 times we've established here?
not that I recall.
Do you recall the complainant's brother being present at the scene?
Yes.
And do you recall him being present in the hallway near the apartment?
Yes.
And do you recall him yelling loudly, quite a few different comments?
At some point in time, yes.
And from those comments, it was your impression that he was angry, right? Of course. And from those comments, it was your impression that he believed Mr. Gomez committed this incident, correct? And he was yelling loud enough for other neighbors in the apartment complex to hear, right?
Possibly.
And he was yelling loudly enough so other neighbors could hear before anyone questioned neighbors, correct?
I'm gonna object, I kind of let it go on, but this is all speculation based on the question she's asked.
Judge, I don't believe it's speculation. The witness heard the individual yelling in a hallway where there's other potential witnesses there. Whether that occurred before or after those witnesses were interviewed, I don't think is speculative at all.
But she's asking for him to make determinations based off those yelling, and I believe that's speculation.
I agree that is speculation. So I'll sustain the objection on that ground.
Understood, Judge. Could I rephrase the question?
You may take your best shot.
Thank you. Did you or any other deputies on scene interview the neighbors prior to being in that hallway that morning?
Yes, I believe that Deputy Betts did. That was part of our original information that we had.
So Deputy Betts interviewed neighbors prior to interviewing. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, Deputy Betts, when he originally went out there, talked to a neighbor, and my understanding is that's how he got information of a history of that address.
Do you know which neighbor?
I do not. In his report.
At no point, you were in the hallway when was present, correct?
Part of it, yes.
At any time, did you ask him to step out of that hallway?
I believe we did have him step outside.
At what point?
I don't recall.
Was that after he was loud and yelling things?
He was loud inside and he was loud outside at some point. He was upset.
Did you personally speak with? Yes. During your investigation and in speaking with him, did you obtain information that the complainant had recently stopped sharing her location with him?
Not that I recall.
You testified on direct that you identified a hostile suspect. And I believe it was hostile suspect, not plural, just one, correct?
Correct.
What does a hostile suspect mean to you?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure that's exactly how I worded it.
Okay, well, it's my recollection that Ms. Blanche on direct asked you, the question I believe was, At some point during your investigation, did you identify a hostile suspect? You,
Objection, I don't think I actually said that.
I don't recall that in my notes, but we can play it back if that's relevant. If the terminology is relevant, we can find out if that's what was said, but I don't have hostile suspect in my notes. But
okay?
I think I said possible.
Oh,
yeah, I think that,
it's possible I heard it wrong then. That's possible. During the course of your investigation, you only investigated one suspect, right?
For our part, my part, yes.
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 And that was my client, Mr. Gomez, right? At no point did you investigate or look into anyone else potentially coming in and out of the apartment and committing this crime, correct?
No, because once the detective bureau got there, it was all turned over to them.
There was a sliding door in the apartment, correct? You recall that?
You can assume, well, I don't recall.
Okay. When you entered the apartment on the two occasions you said you entered in the apartment on, you saw some blood stains throughout the apartment, right? You didn't see any cleaning supplies laying out near those blood stains, correct?
Not that I recall.
Okay. And based on your training and experience, would that lead you to believe that someone did not try to clean up this incident?
I'm gonna check.
Yep. Sustained.
Were you the individual who called and obtained the exigent circumstances phone ping? No?
No.
Okay, what was your involvement in obtaining the phone ping information then?
I requested central dispatch to do so.
Okay, so when you testified on direct, you only know what the ping revealed. You don't know how the ping was obtained. Is that correct?
Ping was obtained through dispatch.
Okay. Who contacted dispatch? What information did you relay to dispatch to get that ping?
Cell phone number.
That was it? You just told them, here's a cell phone number?
The cell phone number, the ping. Correct.
You didn't give them any other information about why you needed a ping, why it was an exigent circumstance, what situation was going on? You just said, hey, here's a number, get me a ping?
Well, dispatch has been, was everything that we've done up to this point was put out over the radio. So they knew what we were doing. And then when we request a ping, they don't ask a lot of follow-up questions. If they do have a follow-up question, they will. But they don't question when a supervisor asks them to conduct the phone ping. I ask them to do the phone ping.
Were you on the line with AT&T when they requested the phone ping? Did you relay to dispatch that this was a missing persons case? Yes, and let me rephrase. In order to get the exigent circumstances ping, did you tell dispatch that this was a missing persons case?
I don't believe so.
And in order to get the exigent circumstances phone ping, did you tell dispatch that the complainant had not been seen since March 7th? You don't recall giving that information to dispatch? Did anyone else speak to dispatch about getting the exigent circumstances phone ping? So dispatch would have only gotten the information from you to get the exigent circumstances phone ping, correct? Do you recall telling dispatch that you needed an exigent circumstances phone ping because the complainant was in an abusive relationship? I could have just a minute, Judge.
Yes. Counsel, you may want to mute
Oh,
that
yes.
microphone. You're welcome.
Just two brief questions.
Yes. go ahead.
Famous last words, though. Dispatch was not on scene, of course, right? And how did dispatch get information to relay to the apartment complex management team in order to provide a key?
For the radio.
Who provided dispatch with the information to then transmit to the management company?
I asked for
And you did so how?
the radio.
To dispatch, correct? What information did you say over the radio to dispatch to request a key be given?
I don't recall the exact verbiage.
Do you recall about what information you might have given? Any facts?
I'm going to object to ask and answer. He says he doesn't remember.
Well, he said he didn't remember the exact verbiage.
Okay.
I think.
Well, do what you can.
Dispatch, can you contact maintenance to get a key to the apartment, please?
Okay. And you didn't provide any facts about what allegedly occurred in the apartment, right?
Dispatch fulfills requests that we make deputy supervisors. We don't always have to go in on everything.
Got it. So no, you didn't provide any information about what allegedly occurred in the apartment, right?
They were aware of whatever was put over the radio, and I don't know what they were not aware of.
Okay. Nothing further, Judge.
Thank you. Any redirect?
Just real brief. Your whole purpose of that day was to come on the scene to do a welfare check,
Correct.
to secure the scene,
Correct.
and called into the Detective Bureau for investigation.
Correct.
Okay, no more questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. Anything else? Sergeant, you may step down. Thank you. And call your next witness.
Detective Stevens.
All right, sir, please come forward and be sworn.
Good night, gentlemen.
Yes.
Solemnly swear affirm the testimony about.
Anyway,
Last name.
first name is Thomas, Thomas. Last name is Sinks, Sinks.
You may inquire.
Thank you, Your Honor. And where do you work?
Currently employed as a detective with the Washington County Sheriff's Office.
And how long have you been employed there?
Been employed with the Washington County Sheriff's Office since October of 1998. Was promoted to detective in May of 2004.
Okay, and as part of your job, do you investigate and process crime scenes?
I do
Okay, and about how many crime scenes have you investigated in the course of your career?
several hundred.
And have you been qualified as an expert in this jurisdiction in crime scene forensics and crime scene processing?
As well as firearms several times, yes.
Judge, I move to qualify Detective Sinks in crime scene processing and crime scene forensics under MRE 702.
Any objection or voir dire?
Your Honor, no objection. I did receive a copy of his CV in advance, so no objection for exam purposes only.
All right, very good. So qualified.
Are you one of the detectives involved in the investigation of the death of Alyson Doulos?
I am.
Okay. And when and where did this homicide allegedly occur?
So it occurred at an address that's in the apartment complex. We were initially, my agency was initially contacted and sent out to that address on March 13th, 2023.
Okay. And did you have a date? Well, when you arrived there, was the apartment already accessed by deputies?
Yes, the deputies had initially performed a welfare check and entered the residence under the public safety exception, which allows them to go in and make sure that people are not in distress or deceased.
Okay, and what was your role in assisting with this investigation?
My role is after I arrived on scene, I was assigned to handle the documentation and processing of the crime scene.
Okay, and who was there on arrival?
So initially on my arrival, there were several uniformed deputies that were outside of the apartment and already on scene. There were also a few of our detectives, as you recall. Lieutenant Chad Keats was there. Detective Brian Yeager was there. I think Detective Morrison was at work, but I believe she was in the process of typing a search warrant for the apartment in question. Detective Soren arrived later on scene, so there were several personnel.
Okay, and what did you observe when you entered the apartment?
So when I first entered the apartment, one of the first things that I noted was there was no forced entry on the front door. I noted that the front door to this particular apartment has a single deadbolt lock, which is frankly interesting in the sense that there was no forced entry because of no handle lock on the door. The door had been deadbolted, so the last person that had gone out that door had a key and was able to deadbolt that door. So frankly, I found that rather interesting. As I entered the apartment, I noted directly in the living room, which would have been a northbound direction, I noticed the decedent, later identified as Alyson Doulos, lying on the floor.
Okay. Did you observe any injuries to her body?
Yes, I did. I noted several injuries to her body.
Okay, can you explain to the court what those injuries were based off?
Sure. I noticed apparent injury on her arm. I noticed significant injury on her face.
Let me stop you on the arm part. What exactly did you observe on her arm?
I noted some red marks that were consistent with injury, in my experience, on her arm. I also noted injury to her face, and it appeared as if she was missing. I also noted that the body was in a state of decomposition.
So the body was already in a state of decomposition.
It was.
Okay, and what? How did you determine that, or what did you see that caused you to determine that?
So when I took a look at the body, there were several post-mortem artifacts on the body. Was lividity is going to be apparent only in cases where the body is post-mortem decomposed. The coloration of the body had started to change. I noted that these fingers in certain areas were in the process of becoming mummified, which is also a post-mortem drying artifact. So there were several post-mortem changes that were apparent in the body.
And Judge, I moved to publish People's Exhibits 2, 3, and 20.
2, 3, and 20.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm going out of order.
That's all right.
Based on his testimony. Now, other injuries to her, you mentioned her arm had bruising on it. Were there any injuries to her? Were there any other injuries that you saw?
Yes, as I previously indicated, visually, I was able to see injuries on her face, in particular around her mouth and nose. And also, as I mentioned before, as if she had been missing.
Okay.
Again, in this particular instance, we're not going to be moving the body until the medical examiner comes on scene. So these were just the injuries that I was able to visually see. But
at the
visually
scene.
Looking at the body at the scene without moving or disturbing the body.
Did you locate her tooth that you believe to be missing?
The tooth was located in the living room. It was actually on the floor. It would have been slightly southwest of the body, and it was ultimately recovered.
Okay, did you locate any blood anywhere in the apartment?
I located blood all over the apartment.
Okay, I'm going to move to publish People's Exhibits 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Actually, I'm just going to go 4 through 16.
4 through
So all the
16.
rest of it in the house. Yep, the scene photos. Yeah. So you said you observed blood everywhere. Let's start in let's start in the back bedroom.
Sure.
Okay. Explain to the court where you first observed blood in the back bedroom.
So initially, there was blood in many locations of the back bedroom, but in particular, one of the areas that I thought was interesting to note was there were some heavy drip stains on the flat sheet of the bed, which to me appeared to be consistent with and an indication of a bleeding event that had occurred and a significant amount of blood that had passively dripped off of the injured individual in that particular location. So almost consistent with somebody having been in the bed. And also it appeared in the position of the bed, in the area of those drip stains, that somebody had been potentially in the bed. There was he had covers had been pulled back. There were other blood stains and areas of blood spatter that were located on the carpeting, on the dresser. I noted at least 2 expiration blood patterns. One of them was on the door leading from the bedroom to the hallway, and I believe another one was located on the door leading from the master closet into the bathroom.
Okay, so then we're,
When you say expiration, what do you mean by that?
So an expirated blood pattern is, I guess the best way to describe an expirated blood pattern is it's a pattern of blood spray that occurs when blood is in the airway and it's breathed or coughed out. And what's indicative about an expirated blood spatter pattern is that a lot of times, and usually, you'll see little air bubbles in the blood pattern, which is consistent with air from the airway mixing with the blood, and the blood either being breathed or coughed out. Very, very particular type of blood stain, and I believe myself and the state police, we located at least 2 of those.
2 of those.
Yes.
Okay, and then from the bathroom, would the bathroom have multiple doors or just 1 door to the bathroom?
So the bathroom in this apartment had 2 doors. The apartment itself had 1 single bathroom. It was a full bathroom. One of the doors was located off of a north-south hallway. And the north-south hallway links living room and kitchen area to the south. To the north, there's 2 bedrooms located off of that north-south hallway. So there's 1 entry from the north-south hallway into the bathroom. And then on the master, when we're referring to the master bedroom, so you have the master bedroom, next to the master bedroom, you have a walk-in closet. The walk-in closet has a doorway along the south wall of the walk-in closet that also leads into the bathroom. So there's 2 modes of entry and egress into the bathroom. One from the master closet, the other from the north-south hallway. So long answer to yes, 2 doors.
Okay, so going from the master closet into the bathroom, you said you noticed blood spray or pattern of, I'm sorry, what'd you call it?
Expirated blood.
Expirated blood on the door leading to the bathroom.
Correct, as
Okay.
well as we later located a bloody fingerprint on that door.
On that door. And then, so going into the bathroom, where was the next blood? If you're in the apartment, where did you see blood next?
So there were other blood stains of note in the bathroom. And then leading from the bathroom, the greatest concentration of blood in the apartment was the north-south hallway.
And there was blood on the carpet there?
There was a significant amount of blood on the carpet. There was blood on the walls as well.
And then going from the hallway into you said there was like a big living room. Did you say that when you
Yes,
first
ma'am.
walked in? Where'd the blood lead from there?
So there were spatters that I located. There was a bookcase. I located some spatters, and we noted some blood there. There was also it looked like I believe we probably refer to it as a swipe stain on the carpeting leading from the hallway into the living room. I located blood also in the kitchen. There was diluted blood located around the faucet in the kitchen. I also noted some stains. There was I believe it was a beer can that was located in the sink in the kitchen. I believe that there were blood stains on that, and I believe the lab actually came back and indicated that there was in fact blood there. I also noted blood and diluted blood on the kitchen floor.
Okay, now the swipe stain from the hallway to the living room. Can you talk a little bit about what you believe that to be?
Sure. So that appeared to be consistent. So when we talk about wipes and swipes, so in this case, it appeared as if something had tracked through and dragged through the saturated carpet in the hallway, which was soiled with blood. Presumably, it appeared to be consistent with Ms. Doulos' body being moved post-mortem, because there were indications the body had been moved post-mortem. And it was consistent with either, I believe it was probably most consistent with either her heel or one of her arms, perhaps an elbow, being dragged through that blood into the living room.
And based on that, did you look at her socks or her clothing to determine whether or not there was any corroborating evidence to suggest that happened?
I did. So there were several things that I noted about the clothing, which also gave me some insight into the sequence of events that occurred after the bleeding events of this incident occurred. Interestingly, I noted that the bottoms of her socks were stained with blood, as were the tops of her socks. And that is indicative, what's interesting when people have blood on their feet, that is indicative of, after a bleeding event, the individual most likely still being ambulatory for a period of time and tracking through blood. So I knew that after the bleeding event had started, Ms. Doulos, at least for a period of time, was still ambulatory and therefore transferred blood onto the bottoms of her feet. I also noted that it appeared as if, I noted a crumpled up sweatshirt that was located under her legs. To me, it appeared to be consistent that somebody tried to remove that from her person, as opposed to that being consistent with having been dragged off of her, just naturally because of the way it was. But I also noted that her pants were slightly pulled down, exposing a portion of her underwear, and that would be consistent with somebody having been on the ground and having been dragged potentially post-mortem, or certainly dragged, I guess I would say, because it looked like her pants had been riding down slightly.
Did you locate any weapon? Well, first of all, the sweatshirt, did you locate any anything of note to the sweatshirt besides the blood? Was there any rips or tears or anything in the sweatshirt at all?
I believe there was a tear in the sweatshirt.
And where was that located?
I don't recall what part of the sweatshirt it was on there, but it was definitely there.
Okay.
I believe we have photographs of it.
Did you locate any weapons in the apartment?
I did.
Where did you locate that?
I located a large knife that was located. It was actually tucked up under a bookcase that was almost parallel with where the decedent was found on the ground. Ultimately, so the decedent was lying on the ground. Her head was to the south. Her feet were facing to the north. This particular bookcase would have been located, or was located, along the west wall of the living room, and the knife that I located was under that bookcase.
About how far from her body was that knife located?
The exact measurement, again, we had laser measurements taken of the apartment. It was only a few feet, not very far.
Okay, did you notice any damage or anything in the knife that was out of character for a knife?
I did. So first and foremost, the knife appeared to have some small trace amounts of what we believed was potentially blood on it. But we also noticed there was a chunk of the blade that was actually missing from the blade of the knife. And to describe the knife, I'm not a cooking person, but to me, maybe butcher style knife. It was a large metal knife.
Okay. And I'd entered a picture of that in as an exhibit. So you said there was a chunk of it out.
Yes.
Were you present at the autopsy of Ms. Doulos?
I was.
Okay. Did they recover anything out of her mouth? Or recover anything? Yeah. Did they recover anything out of her mouth at the autopsy?
Yes, a chunk of metal was recovered from her maxilla bone. And that chunk of metal, myself and Dr. Kosh, were just for demonstrative purposes. Everything is subsequently been forwarded to the Michigan State Police Lab. But for demonstrative purposes, we wanted to see if that chunk of metal was consistent with the chunk that had been taken out of the knife that was brought to autopsy. And we did. We were able to kind of visually line that up. In terms of, if we were thinking of the knife as a jigsaw puzzle, the missing piece of metal appeared to fit the jigsaw puzzle.
That was lodged in her mouth?
In her maxilla bone.
Okay. Judge, that was published of 17, 18, and 19 exhibits.
Yes, I see that.
Thank you, Your Honor. Were there any animals present in the apartment when you were there?
There were, and there were ultimately some animals missing.
Okay. How many animals were present?
There were 2 cats that were present at the time of my arrival.
And what do you believe were to be missing?
From the information that I've been given from some of the other deputies, and certainly from what I saw at the apartment, it appeared as if there were dogs that were normally at that apartment. There were no dogs when I arrived on the scene. And I later learned that there were 2 dogs that were missing from the scene.
Do you know what happened to those dogs?
I do. So I believe their names, if I get this wrong, were Starsky and Hutch. Hutch was taken by Mr. Gamez to a shelter and ultimately.
Objection, Your Honor, lacks personal knowledge as to what Mr. Gamez may have done with the dog and also judge relevance.
I can respond. So I can further up how he knows he took it to the animal shelter, but also it's extremely relevant because if someone who just had killed somebody got rid of their dogs, then it shows that he had his state of mind at the time.
I have 2 objections to the relevance objection. That one is overruled. I will sustain the other objection, allow you to rephrase or build foundation for.
Okay, thank you, Judge. Okay, what information do you have that Mr. Gamez took his dogs to a shelter at that point?
So
they were not present in the apartment, correct?
So
okay.
I heard that information from Detective Soren, who's the officer in charge of the case, as well as Detective Orson. They had actually followed up on that information. Myself and the other detective, we were advised that one of the dogs was dropped off in a shelter and ultimately euthanized. We know it was euthanized because my agency, when we found out it had been dropped off at that shelter, and that particular shelter was a kill shelter, I believe it was Detective Soren advised me that he made inquiries and was going to try to rescue that dog so it did not become euthanized. So that's how we know that one was euthanized. From speaking with Detective Soren on the case, that Starsky had been.
Judge, I'm going to object. Again, he's stating that he knows from talking to another detective. My objection is to lack of personal knowledge and hearsay if this continues to go far about what the other detective told him.
And Judge, he's not saying exactly what he said, but I can move on. I was just trying to build a foundation of where the dogs went.
The other dog
He can't.
Hold on. I'll sustain the objection. Go ahead. You can move on.
Okay, go ahead.
So the other dog.
No, sorry.
Oh.
Yeah, no. Sorry.
Okay.
Did you locate Alyson Doulos's purse?
I did.
Okay, and where was it?
So Ms. Doulos's purse was it was located in the hallway, and it appeared to have been dumped out or rummaged through. There were also traces of apparent blood that were located on that purse.
Was her wallet inside?
It was.
Okay. And were you able to locate the victim's vehicle, Alyson Doulos's vehicle?
No, nor were we able to find any apartment keys on that day. We later did.
Okay. So not on that day, but then when did you later located her vehicle?
I did.
Okay, and where was that located?
Let me back up. I did not personally locate her vehicle. Her vehicle was located by my organization.
Where was it? Do you have knowledge of where the vehicle was located?
I do. It was located in Europe.
Okay, and then where did you were the one that processed the vehicle, right?
I did.
Okay. Did you find any apartment keys in the vehicle?
I did.
Okay, where were those at?
I found 2 sets of apartment keys. Let me check my list of collected evidence.
Are you refreshing recollection based on
I am. This is my collected evidence spreadsheet.
I would ask that he'd be allowed to refresh his recollection, Judge.
And Judge, I guess I would just ask to see the document he's using to refresh his recollection.
Okay.
Oh,
Hold on. May I approach so I can show her? Yeah.
Please.
Sure. This is part of the discovery packet. I'll need that back.
May I approach a witness?
Yes, you may.
Thank you, Judge.
The front passenger door mat pocket.
Okay, and how many keys were located?
Well, there were keys located there. There were additional keys. Let's see here. There were several, and again, there's photographs of that. But in that vehicle, we recovered 2 sets of apartment keys.
Okay. Judge, I have no more questions.
All right. Cross-examination.
So I was taking a look at your CV and I'm wondering, was there a specific course that you took to become a crime scene expert?
Well, there are several courses. If you look at page 2, and 3 have about 25 or 30 different courses. Those are all advanced courses. Some of those courses you need to have an educational forensic founding before you can attend some of the other courses, for instance, basic and advanced evidence forensics technician. So yes, they're on my CV.
Thank you. About how many hours did those courses take you?
Hundreds of hours.
Have there been, I'm sorry, what was that?
Over the course of my career, hundreds of hours.
Have there been any cases in which your qualification as a crime scene expert was requested and was denied?
No,
You do not have a biology degree, correct?
I do not. I'm not a forensic scientist. No,
And you're not a medical doctor, correct?
I'm not a medical doctor. No.
And you work for Washtenaw County Sheriff's Department, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And you're compensated by Washtenaw County Sheriff's Department, correct?
I am.
Were you wearing any body-worn camera footage the date of the investigation?
We do not wear body-worn cameras when we process crime scenes. No.
Were you wearing body-worn camera footage throughout any course, any part of this investigation?
No.
Is there a reason for that?
Yes,
What is that reason?
because we don't wear body-worn cameras when we process crime scenes.
Is there a further reason why you don't wear body-worn cameras when processing crime scenes?
I don't. Yes, because I don't know of any forensic scientist or forensic evidence technician that does.
Is there a specific policy written in your department's handbook or book of procedures?
There is.
What's that policy called?
Policy procedure.
Okay, and do you recall which one it is that details not wearing body-worn camera footage while processing crime scene?
You would have to look at it yourself. I do not.
You don't recall personally sitting on the witness stand?
It's not mandatory, nor is it recommended.
My question to you is whether you recall which procedure it is.
Yes, it's in the body-worn camera.
Okay.
It dictates when a body-worn camera needs to be worn and when it does not.
Okay. All right. You testified that you went to the scene for a welfare check, correct?
I did not.
You did not.
No.
Okay. You're aware, and it's my understanding you're the officer in charge of this case. Is that correct?
I am not. I'm sitting in for the officer in charge today. That's going to be Aaron Soren. He's the officer in charge of the overall investigation.
Okay, but you've played an active role in the investigation of this case, right?
In a limited part, I did.
Okay. So you are, and I'm sorry, I see you looking at notes. Is there something that you're using currently while you're testifying?
No, go ahead.
Okay. And Judge, I would ask that if the witness is utilizing notes, that I be provided with a copy of such notes and be permitted to inspect such notes.
Well, let's first of all figure out, is he using notes or is it a report?
Yeah, Your Honor, my report is right
Well,
there.
I just said, whoa. Are you using your report? Is that what
No.
that is?
No,
Okay.
And
I'm not sure what note you're referring to.
just for the record, Judge, I did see the witness flipping through several pages while I was asking questions, which is what prompted me to ask that question.
and Your Honor, I was shuffling paperwork. I was not referring to any notes or paper answering your question.
Okay, so why don't we do this? Why don't we turn those papers over and put them off to the side? I
Sure,
realize that may be a habit as opposed to looking at something,
absolutely.
but I can understand why counsel might have some concern.
Thank you,
So
Judge.
there are no notes to give you. You may continue.
Thank you, Judge. Appreciate that. In the course of your investigation, you realized there was more than one welfare check done in this case, correct?
I was aware of one.
You were only aware that one welfare check was done that day.
Yes,
You have no knowledge of another welfare check that was completed by Detective Garlick, right?
I later learned of one, but that was not information that I was given on the night that I was.
Okay, so let me get this straight. Your testimony seated here today is that you do know there was more than one welfare check done, right?
On the date of this incident, I was only aware of one.
Well, my question to you is, what is your knowledge as you're seated here on the witness stand? And my question to you is, as you're seated here on the witness stand, you are aware there were 2 welfare checks done on this home on that particular date, correct?
Ma'am, if you say there were 2, then there were 2, sure.
That's simply not my question. My question to
My
you
question is, I
was,
was aware of 1 at that point in time. I later learned that I believe the police had been out there on a previous domestic type incident, but I wasn't aware of it at the time that I was there. So if that makes 2, if that's the 2 you're speaking of, then yes, there were 2. But on the date of this incident, my understanding was that there was only 1.
okay, are you aware who called the welfare check that you're aware of it?
I'm not aware of that.
You took some photos inside of the apartment, correct?
I did.
And those were the photos that Ms. Blanche admitted during your direct examination, correct?
They were.
Okay. I believe there were also some photos that were taken during the autopsy, correct? Did you take those photos or did someone else?
I don't know. I think those photos might have been mine, but I also know that the morgue takes their own photos. So I believe the ones you're talking about are probably mine.
Specifically, I'm asking if you took exhibits 17, 18, and 19.
May I see them, please?
Yes, may I approach the witness?
You may.
Yes, these appear to be my photographs.
Thank you. And did you take those photographs at the time of the autopsy?
I did.
All 3 of those photos were taken at the time of the autopsy, correct?
They were.
Thank you. Judge, may I approach the witness to retrieve my
You may.
documents? Thank you. With regards to exhibit number 19, and I'm sorry, I should have left this with you. I can provide this to you if you need to review it. Judge, may I approach the witness with the exhibit?
Yes,
Thank you.
absolutely.
So with regards to that particular photograph, who placed the fragment into the knife? You or the individual conducting the autopsy?
I don't recall if it was myself or Dr. Kosh. I think it might have been myself.
Okay. And were you wearing gloves while you touched that? May I approach the witness again? I promise. I'm done now.
That's okay.
Okay, when you took the photographs inside of the apartment,
Yes.
before you took those photographs, were you aware of a suspect in the case?
At the time, no, I was not.
What information were you aware of at the time that you took those photographs?
I wasn't aware of much information at the time. I was aware that Ms. Doulos, that a welfare check had been conducted. Essentially, was aware that Ms. Doulos did not show up for work one day, and I was given very limited information.
Did you speak to the complainant's brother prior to entering the scene and taking photographs?
No.
Did you speak with any neighbors prior to entering the scene and taking photographs?
No.
Do you recall there being a sliding door in the apartment?
There were 2.
2. Were either of those sliding doors open?
They were both closed.
They were unlocked though, correct?
They weren't.
I believe, did you take a temperature inside of the apartment?
I did.
Did you take a temperature of the body?
I believe I did.
If I showed you a report, would that refresh your recollection?
Actually,
Or-
I think I have it here.
Yeah, you can, that will refresh your recollection. You can look now.
Where's the trust? Stand by. Okay. Which temperatures would you like me to reference?
My question is simply, did you take a temperature of the body
Yes,
at the scene?
I did.
Okay, did you take a temperature of the general air at the scene as well?
Yes, the ambient temperature of the apartment?
Yes.
Yes.
Was there also a medical examiner investigator present?
Later, and there was also the chief medical examiner for Washtenaw County was also present later.
At what point did the medical examiner investigator arrive?
It would be in the, I believe it would be in the notes of the entry form, but it was the following morning.
Okay.
Very early in the morning,
How long had you been there prior to the medical examiner investigator appearing?
several hours.
Okay. And had you already started to process the crime scene before the medical examiner investigator arrived?
Yes, ma'am.
And
Well,
what?
we did not, if I might, we did not touch, move, or manipulate the body in that period of time.
Okay. Yeah, I think you indicated the chief deputy medical examiner was also present at the scene.
Dr. Alicia Wilson.
Okay. And what time did approximately what time did Dr. Wilson arrive?
Same time as the medical examiner investigator. I believe they all came together.
Okay. And that was.
It was early it was early in the morning of, I believe that would have been the 14th.
Okay. I believe you testified on direct that there were some post-mortem artifacts present that you identified.
Yes.
I'm sorry. But isn't it true that you can't really tell how long the body had been present there?
It's certainly not an exact science. No, it often has to do with certain environmental factors.
Okay. So you couldn't, for example, determine time of death based upon your expertise and understanding of the crime scene, correct?
Exact time of death, no.
Okay. Could you give an approximate time or date of death based upon your expertise and experience at the crime scene?
Well, I know based on the postmortem changes, many of those, even if we're talking about a warm or cold environment, take several hours to occur. So she'd been down for a while.
What's a while?
Well, in my opinion, it was over 24 hours.
And you mentioned post-mortem changes. What do you
Yes.
mean by that?
Postmortem changes are natural decomposition in the body.
Oh, I understand that, but what do you mean in this particular situation? What post-mortem changes did you identify?
Lividity. I noted some marbling. I noticed some mummification in the fingertips as well.
Marbling where?
Marbling in the veins.
Okay. You located a tooth, I believe, correct?
Yes.
At what point of how far into your investigation did you locate the tooth? How many hours had you been processing the scene before you located the tooth?
I don't know exactly how many hours, but we located the tooth shortly after the medical examiner arrived on scene.
Who located the tooth?
I believe it was initially one of the Michigan State Police forensic scientists did.
Do you recall which one?
It would probably be in their notes, in their report.
Okay, but you don't recall.
It was, I believe it was a female. May I have permission to look at my notes?
If it
Would
would.
that refresh your recollection?
Okay.
Yeah,
refresh.
go ahead.
Felony notes here. I think it might have been Miss Casser.
Okay.
The biologist, the Michigan State Police.
Yes, I'm familiar. Thank you. You testified that it appeared, and I believe this was your testimony. I'm sure you'll correct me if I'm wrong, though. That a bleeding event occurred, and that you believed it occurred somewhere in the bed. Is that correct?
At some point in time, there was blood up there.
Is it your opinion, based upon your experience and investigation in this case, that this altercation occurred in the bed?
I don't know if it necessarily occurred in the bed. It definitely occurred in the bedroom.
Where in the bedroom is it your opinion that this altercation occurred?
Well, most of the area, I believe it would be to the west of the bed.
The west of the bed. What else is near the location where you believe this occurred?
There's the dresser, there's the window, there's two doors.
What causes you to come to that conclusion?
Based on the concentrations of blood.
Have you had training in blood splatter pattern analysis?
I have not had training in blood spatter and blood patterns. There's no such thing as blood splatter. It's SPAT. Yes. Sorry.
Thank you for that.
I want to make sure.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what I meant. Appreciate that. When was your most recent training in that regard?
It's probably been a few years.
Have you ever been qualified as an expert in blood analysis of any kind?
Specific to blood pattern analysis?
Yes.
No, I have not. But again, it encompasses the overall forensic crime scene processing.
You testified there was an expirated, I'm sure you'll correct me if I'm wrong, blood pattern. What did that signify to you?
There had been blood in the airway of the individual that deposited it. So at the time it was deposited, obviously the individual was bleeding and that blood had entered the airway.
There's no way to determine when that blood was placed on the surfaces where you found it, though, correct?
Right.
There's no test that can be done to determine that, correct? You testified on direct that it was your opinion that the complainant was ambulatory after sustaining some sort of bleeding injury. Is that correct?
For a period of time, yes.
Okay. And what that means is that she was moving around and able to walk around after having some sort of bleeding injury, correct?
Right.
And presumably that means she was able to walk around, moved, and she could have been the aggressor in that time period between which she sustained the bleeding injury and her time of death, correct?
I don't know. I know she would have been ambulatory. I can't speculate as to whether or not someone was an aggressor.
Okay. But she would have been able to move her arms, presumably, correct?
Yes.
She would have been able to walk towards another individual, correct?
Correct.
She would have been able to pick up objects and hold them, correct?
Most likely, yes, correct.
Did you re-enter the crime scene on March 23rd, 2023?
I believe that was I just want to verify the date.
Yes, go ahead. That refreshes your recollection. You may.
Sure.
Gonna have this all
I
day.
did.
You did. And what was the purpose of re-entering the crime scene that day?
I wanted to look for more evidence.
Specifically, what more evidence did you think you would find?
Well, if I can look at my notes, I can tell you.
If that
It will refresh.
your recollection, you may. Go ahead.
So in particular, I wanted to take some additional files and note some additional evidence. I collected a beverage can. I took 1, 2, 3. So like 3 additional swabs. I took a pair of scissors with a fiber on it. Handwritten note. Another swab. 2 computers. And I believe that's about it.
Okay, for what purpose did you take the scissors?
I took the scissors because I thought that they were noteworthy and I saw a small fiber on them. And again, at the time when we process a crime scene, we don't necessarily know what's going to be important. So oftentimes we'll take several items. A lot of times those items end up having to have nothing to do with their case, but sometimes they do. So I thought that was interesting and might be probative in some way, shape, or form down the road. Obviously not knowing how, so I subsequently collected those.
Got it. So when you re-entered the apartment on March 23rd, 2023, the lock had been changed, correct? No?
Actually, you know what? Correct. The lock had been changed. Sorry about that. The lock had been changed and I had the only key to it. I requested that the lock be changed once we released the apartment. We held the apartment on the 13th and the 14th. And the purpose for doing that was in the event that I felt we needed to go back in, I could get another search warrant and re-enter. So I did have management do that.
At what point in time did you request that the lock be changed? What day was that?
On the 14th.
And on what day did management change the lock?
Management changed the lock on the 14th and we had a deputy standing by. So we never relinquished control of the apartment until that lock was changed by management.
Who was the deputy that was standing by?
Boy, I don't know. I was
Okay.
asleep at that point in time.
Understandable. Sounds like it was a long evening.
It was.
About how long were you at the crime scene for that day?
I'm gonna look at my notes.
Okay,
So I want to be.
that will refresh your recollection. as
You
to
mean
how
your
long
report,
are you-
correct?
Yeah. Sorry. So I arrived on scene at approximately 12:58 a.m., which would have been technically Tuesday the 14th. And I think we left the scene, I think it was like 10 in the morning, later on the 14th. So we've been there for.
Okay. Was that your first shift of the day?
You know, Generally, we don't have work shifts per se. I normally work day shift, I suppose, or daytime hours. 8 to 4 is typically when I work. But no, so I had, on the 13th, when I was contacted about this case, I had already worked a full day. I just gone to sleep. I got woken up. I was up all night. And then that morning after I left the scene, I went home and went to bed for a while. And then I got up and came back.
Okay. You processed the vehicle, is my understanding. You processed the vehicle at issue in this matter. You didn't find any bloody stains or anything in the vehicle, correct?
I did not.
And you didn't find any bloody clothing or anything to that effect in the vehicle, correct?
I believe the vehicle was, for blood purposes, was forwarded to the Michigan State Police Forensic Lab. So if there was blood, I think I don't know if we have a lab report on that. But that would have been documented by the Michigan State. In particular, I requested they process the vehicle for blood. I was more or less doing an inventory search of the vehicle to see if there's anything probative from an evidentiary standpoint in terms of things that I could find. But with regards to trace amounts of blood, that was specifically what I had the Michigan State Police do.
You testified that you found some keys inside of the vehicle, but you don't know who those keys belong to, correct?
Well, I know they belong to the apartment, and according to management, both sets of keys had originally been given to Alyson Doulos. I followed up with management on that.
When did you follow up with management on that?
That's going to be in my report, and that section of my report, that was an additional supplemental report that I offered, and I actually don't have that with me on the stand, but I did document who I followed up with.
Did you obtain any leasing documentation from the apartment?
If that will refresh your recollection.
Yeah, thanks. Oh, I think Detective Storing might have, I did note that there was an eviction notice that I found at the time of processing.
And just so I'm clear on your testimony today is that you personally confirmed with the apartment complex that both sets of keys were given to the complainant.
Oh, I did. Yes, I set up an appointment with management. I brought the keys to management. I actually had them identify the keys. And they said that at the time that Ms. Doulos leased the apartment, she was given those 2 keys. And they said that they did not issue any other than this. So get both of those keys found in Alyson's vehicle during processing.
Did you speak with the apartment complex prior to anyone entering the home at the very beginning of the investigation?
No, ma'am. That all took place prior. I was at home sleeping at one time, I believe.
Okay. And I'm guessing you have no knowledge of any exigent circumstance, phone pings, nothing of that sort, right? No. Okay. What other suspects did you investigate in this matter?
I didn't necessarily investigate any suspects. Again, my focus was the crime scene and the evidence. So I didn't go out into any interviews with regards to tracking down any suspects on this case.
Okay, well, as the seating for today, at least, OIC in this matter, are you aware of anyone investigating any other suspects in this case?
I'm not, because I don't believe the evidence points to anybody else other than the defendant.
But even at the beginning of the investigation, there was no other suspect that was ever looked into, correct?
I wasn't looking at that. I just picked them up. I apologize.
It's okay.
Or could you please rephrase your question?
I'll repeat my question. I'm not sure if you heard it, but as the OIC who's seated, at least for today, as the OIC,
Yes,
you're not aware of anyone in your department investigating any other suspect other than my client, correct?
that is correct, because at this time, there's no other evidence that is leading us to investigate another suspect other than the defendant. That is correct.
And your testimony just now was at this time, there's no one else. But even at the beginning of this investigation, on March 13th or early morning hours of March 14th, there were no other suspects that were investigated at that time too, correct?
I can't speak for the other detectives.
Okay, you personally didn't investigate any other suspects.
I did not. I was busy dealing with crimes.
If I could have just a minute.
Yes, you may. It's green when it's muted, so you're good. Don't ask me, I didn't set it up. So.
Nothing further, Judge. Thank you.
All right, redirect.
Just one question. defense counsel had talked about a sliding door that was unlocked. What floor was this apartment located on?
So the apartment's on the 3rd floor, and then the outside balcony has the screened porch.
So there's a sliding glass door going to screen and porch balcony on the 3rd floor.
Yes.
Okay, no more questions.
But do both sliding doors go?
Yes, Your Honor, if so, may I elaborate?
Yes, please.
Oh, okay.
My question. So,
I guess you win.
yeah, I do.
Okay, so in this apartment, when you enter the front door, you come into the living room. To the east of the living room is a kitchen. There's a sliding door that goes off of the kitchen and off of the living room.
Got it.
So it's if you're thinking of the screen and porch, the south wall has a door and the west wall. They're both sliders.
Got it.
Now follow up since you asked it. They both lead to the screen and porch, right?
Both go to the same place.
And no forced entry in the screen and porch.
No, the screen and porch was intact.
All right, no more questions.
All right, thank you.
Judge,
Go ahead.
I apologize. I know I've
No.
already sat down and rested. I have
No, go ahead.
maybe 3 or 4 questions. They're unrelated to the questions that were asked, though, admittedly.
I will let you go ahead.
Thank you, Judge. I appreciate that very much. Okay, I promise I'll try to be quick.
No. take-
As the crime scene forensic expert, did you conduct any investigation on the complainant's medical history?
On the complainant's medical history.
Yes.
I believe that was handled by the medical examiner. They would have the medical history for the complainant.
So you did not, correct?
I did.
Okay. And is it true you also did not complete any investigation on the complainant's mental health history?
That is correct.
And you also didn't complete an investigation on her social history?
That is correct. That might have been handled by the other detectives, but myself, no.
And also not on her financial history, correct?
I'm gonna check this for relevance.
Well, Judge, I'd suggest it's relevant as a crime scene expert, who's been qualified as such. It's part of a full and adequate, complete investigation of a crime scene.
The financial.
Mental history?
of the victim? I don't think that's.
I mean, it might be part of the investigation if one is trying to determine motive, but in terms of processing a scene, I don't
No.
see the relevance. But did you do anything regarding finances?
No, that would have been handled by the overarching detectives as crime scene forensic specialist or expert, as you were saying. Our focus is on the physical evidence that we found at the scene. So
Got it.
digging into somebody's mental health history is not something that we would see at a crime scene. It's not something that the forensic scientists from the Michigan State Police would analyze. That would be handled in the overarching overall investigation, not the crime scene work.
And that's not something you would personally investigate prior to making your opinions, correct?
On this particular case, no, it is not.
Thank you. Nothing further.
Any redirect?
No, Your Honor.
All right, you may step down. Thank you, Detective.
Permission to touch my paper.
Yes,
Thank
you can take them with you. All right. Did you have your next witness available already?
Yes, detective.
Can I?
Oh, sorry. Need a break.
Yes, I do. I'm going to take about 15 minutes, so we'll come back just shortly before 11.
Okay.
And all right, court is standing recess.
All rise.
Well, definitely an interesting case. I will be following this as far as I am able. So stay tuned. I will hopefully have the actual trial, if that does take place, in front of Judge Conkey. Again, don't forget to like and subscribe to support my channel. Chimagwitch, thank you for watching, and I will see you next time.